Well, this is a true pleasure. I'm trying not to fanboy a little bit here because look at this. The person on the internet is real. She's
Yeah,
real.
I am.
Abby Langer, really outside your kids. Is this summer camp now? Is that what this officially is?
Yeah. So my 11-year-old is in day camp, and
Mhm.
if I don't pick her up on time, she gives me the stink eye, which I just can't handle it at this point.
Really?
So yeah, so I'm sitting here in my car. I'm so sorry. I've also been moving all day because we're doing a huge renovation on our house. So I've been going back and forth to our rental. And so I'm not like super put together today, but it is so good to be here with you. And yeah, I'm excited to answer your questions and talk to you about nutrition.
Well, this is really cool because with the Back of the Pack Club, I've been touting your social for a while just because I love your kind of no bullshit approach to everything. And by the way, we do cuss, and that was the other kind of thing I appreciated. And I always say that there's two types of people that swear. There's ones that can't find any smarter way to express themselves, and there's the ones that are too honest. And I think that you and I kind of lean on that side of it more because sometimes you just need to get it out there, and the only thing that'll
Yeah.
express it is a word that might involve some different
It's
colorful
like a
language.
punctuation.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
it really like makes it stresses my point.
yeah. And so before we jump into the questions here from some of the group and people that are just watching in general, give us the Cole's notes of your history here and how
Sure.
long you've been doing this and why you've taken to social media in the way you have.
So I've been a dietitian for I think almost 22 years now. My God. And I've worked in all the typical dietitian places like hospitals and clinics. And I founded Abby Langer Nutrition in 2012 because I had a lot to say and I knew that only I could say it the way I wanted it said. And I also was tired of working for other people. I had two young kids and I really wanted to be around them they were being raised by nannies. So 2017, I went full time at my business. And since then, I mean, I've written a book, Good Food, Bad Diet, was published by Simon and Schuster in January.
You mean this book right here?
Yes, that book. Yay! And it's in its third, it's like six months later, it's in its third printing, which
Wow.
is amazing. And yeah, you know what? I love what I do because I get to spread the truth. I mean,
Yeah.
I get pissed off people a lot, like emailing me and all of that, but I won't stop because I know what I'm saying is helping people. And so here I am.
And that's kind of the goal of why I started the run club too, because with no disrespect to some of the great established running clubs and clinics that are out there and all that, I found in my experience very rarely was there anyone who could relate to me. And that's because usually these things are run by people who are they've got like amazing track accomplishments, or
Yeah.
they've run like 30-40 marathons and things like that. And don't get me wrong, I've gotten out there and done it, but I've done it all relatively close to this frame and this size and
Yeah.
everything. And there are different issues that people face when you have a different body or a different build, and not
Yeah.
everything works for everybody. I've kind of latched on to what you do with your delivery on the blanket approach to nutrition and wellness, which we'll get into. But also the fact that it's okay to individualize requirements per person, even if it is in a group setting. So, I mean,
Absolutely.
we're gonna go to some specific questions here from some of the people. One of the first reasons I actually reached out to you was a while ago, because it was about 4 years ago now, 3 or 4 years ago, that I was
What?
actually diagnosed as no, not when I first
Oh.
reached out to you. It was about a year ago, I think, since I first reached out to you. But you're busy. You're kind of a big deal. You got a book. But but in all seriousness, I was trying to work through my own stuff, being recently diagnosed as a type 2 diabetic. And when that happened, I took it as, okay, I have to change the way I eat because I have to, not
Right.
just because I think it'll help me lose weight or because of this diet, that diet, everything else. And one thing that I found right away is that to this day, a lot of people don't even understand what diabetes is and what you have to watch for. Basically, I watched an episode of South Park that explained diabetes better than some people have an understand. I'm not kidding. If you haven't seen it, I'll send you the link. But they actually did a great job of explaining it better than some general public do. And basically, you just have to work a little harder and watch what you're eating and make your own choices, more because you have to, not because you think it's going to be a better thing down the line because of wishes and hopes and fairies and dreams and stuff. And so I made this promise to myself that I was going to keep my feet, and so that's why I got back into running again and everything else. And one thing I wanted to hit on, just on a nutrition standpoint, is you talk about in your book a little bit, you talk about sugars, carbs, but you also talk about gluten. And it's funny because I can't tell you how many friggin' people, when I say, hey, do you have any diabetic options, they will say, well, here, this is gluten free.
That's not a diabetic option. Like, what are you talking about?
That's basically and most of the time it's like the most anti-diabetic option, right? Because they fill it with sugars. So
yeah, and that's what most people like. They think diabetic, they think diet, they think gluten. It's like, that's the extent of the understanding, right? Of science, even, and physiology. And that's what I deal with every day. And I'm sure you do too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's just it. So when you discover that sugars can be in everything, like I never knew watermelon was going to be my mortal enemy. I love watermelon. I live in Saskatchewan. It's basically worshipped here. But you gotta take it easy, right? And so moderation, all these things, and like you said, all your stuff is science based, and that's why I really wanted to get down to it, because I've had people that have approached this run club as a way to lose weight, and I've said flat out, look, my body has changed. I've grown muscle in places that muscle wasn't before. I've slimmed down in some areas. I've gotten bigger in others, but running won't lead to weight loss alone unless you do some of the science and the work behind it, right?
Right. Exactly. Actually, my husband said, I used to run all the time. I've run a couple marathons myself. And my husband's like, he's like, you're the only person I know who gets fatter when they run.
Really?
Thanks, honey. But yeah, I do, because it makes me really hungry. And if I run anything more than 3 miles, I'm just so hungry. And so I second that. Like, I mean, I also gained weight while I was training for a marathon because I get hungry. My point is, just running will not, just exercise alone, any type of exercise will not likely lead to appreciable weight loss without changes in your diet. And so I always say it's like 80-20. It might be even more, but there's a limit to how many calories you can burn from a workout.
So we do have a couple questions that go to that. One of the ones I don't remember, I think this came in a little late, but a big question that always comes in with runners, and we've talked about it a bit in the group, but for people that are just watching as well, is the whole carbo loading theory. And one of our instructors did a great job. One of our coaches in the early season, he said flat out that basically, if you wanted to benefit from a carbo load, you basically have to diminish carbs all the way leading up to the run to do it. So if we're just running and eating regularly, eating 20 plates of spaghetti the night before a big run, not really going to help, right?
That's over. Those big pasta feeds, that's over. All you're ending up doing is just eating far too much. Your liver can only hold, your liver and muscle can only hold a certain amount of glycogen, and after that, it's just calories. So I saw the question about carb loading. No, there is no need to carb load, especially if you're not doing there's no need to carb load, period. Right. But I mean, a carb-rich meal the night before a workout, for example, will be fine, especially if you're not doing like an ultra marathon. And then, and you should be okay. And then while you're running, if you don't like gels, because I think that was someone else's question, or the second part of the question.
We'll get there on that one for sure. But so
carb loading, no, we're done with that.
Okay. All right. So let's get to that then. That was Nurse Becky, as a matter of fact. She wanted to know, can I replace electrolytes that I lose during a big run using food and drinks rather than gels? If so, what can I use? Gels give me GI symptoms, and she would know. She's a nurse. So
and I've had that same problem. I was once 5 miles out, and I was doing a 10-mile run, out and 5 back. And at my 5th mile, I took a gel, and oh my God, I was going to like poo my pants. And I was like, holy shit, no pun intended. Like, what am I going to do? I ended up like freaking walking
Yeah.
so far because it's just the worst. It's the worst feeling. So yes, I hear you. It was just one particular type of gel with me. But you know, there's plenty of foods that you can have instead of gels. I do want to mention, I'm not sure if they still sell them. Cliff Bar makes blocks, those little blocks.
Yeah.
They're like gel, and you can, and I found those amazing and really delicious. They're like less of a load, if you will, than like the gels all at once. But also, I mean, salted baby potatoes. One of my favorites is dates stuffed with nut butter, bananas, dried fruit, nuts. Like, there's so many different options. You do not, by any stretch of the imagination, have to limit yourself to gels.
I think you and I should go into the market right now. I'm always looking to make new merch. I think we should come up with the runner's pantry. And it's like a little bag that you just put right here. It's got like a little cupboard you open up, and like there's our dates, there's our this, there's our that. I actually I used to run with a guy who would bring like granola bars with him on course instead of gels, and so he had a rather large fanny pack with him because he had like 3 or 4 of them for a half marathon. But
just like take bits every little while, right?
Yeah,
it's all good.
And that's just it. So anything is really interchangeable with gels. A lot of people, I guess, use the gels more for the convenience factor and the size factor and everything else, right?
But and you know, as far as like electrolytes, like it just depends on how long your run is. You know, if you're just doing a 5K, you should be fine with water.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know what length or what, you know, duration you run or whatever. But I mean, if you're doing strenuous exercise for well over an hour, you might need like some electrolyte replacement. But if you're going to have something like dates, for example, those have potassium, you can just have those and water.
We have a 5 and a 10K course, 2 different courses that are watching this primarily. So for the 5K, we say the same thing, you know, basically, unless it's like a super wicked hot day, which we've had a few of those now across Canada.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Then maybe consider having electrolyte or a Gatorade or something after the run for something free there. But for the 10K, we are starting to recommend bringing 1 bottle of water, 1 bottle of electrolyte, just to have something just in case that 10K takes you a little longer, because again, we don't run for speed, we run for style,
right?
And so we're here to finish. And so if you're out there longer, what do you think of that?
I think it's great.
Yeah,
I think I mean, I don't necessarily love running with 2 bottles on me, but it doesn't matter. Like you can bring a few dates or whatever. That's a lot lighter, right? And it doesn't slosh around. I used to have a water bottle that I would have a strap and I'd hold it, and then in a marathon I would just ditch it.
Yeah,
never up again.
Just leaving bottles all over the city.
Yeah, well, I would have one, you know, and I never drank Gatorade, but that's me, you know.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too. So a lot of people are trying to find what's best, you know, what's the best. And I'm not going to ask you to go down a line of product endorsements or anything here, but what do you think people should primarily be looking for when they're trying to find, especially an electrolyte drink or something that they really need, they feel they need while they're out there running?
I think a lot of people are so scared of sugar, because, you know, the climate around sugar now is one of fear. But it's important to realize that if you're running really long, you might need some sugar for energy. And so it's not a bad idea to have like a Cliff Bar, or, you know, people are like down on Cliff Bar, for example, because they have sugar in them. But yeah, that's your body's first line of energy, right? For energy. So, you know, if you want to have something that has a little bit of sugar, not too much, that's fine. You know, obviously electrolytes. I mean, it comes down to what you can tolerate and what you like the taste of. There's so many options. And it also comes down to what you need. Like, you know, why are you going to bring an electrolyte drink if you're running short? You're probably fine with it. If you're going to have a meal after you get home, and you'll be okay.
Don't overthink it is what you're saying, basically.
Right.
Yeah,
Unless you're paying like maybe like 12 or more miles. I do miles. I'm sorry.
that's fine.
I started US, that's why. I think like a half marathon, 13 miles. I don't think there's that much need to overthink it.
Okay. We have a lot of women in the group. Some are going
Yep.
north of 40. And this is a great question. Wondering if you have advice for women over 40 with slowing metabolism. Do you suggest things like 3 meals a day versus meals plus snacks, intermittent fasting, pros, cons? What do you think of all this stuff here in as quick of an answer as you can give on this? Because I know there's a wide spectrum of stuff being covered here.
Yeah. I am working on an eating over 40 course. And because I share your concerns, I'm over 40, and yeah, it's like your body changes. And I think what it comes down to is gut health. So like, for example, I take inulin fiber but it's not good for people with IBS. It helps with constipation. It helps feed the good bacteria in your gut. I also, for some people, know that intermittent fasting does help. I would never do anything. I would never have a fasting window larger than 16 hours, so like do 8 and 16. So essentially, like, if you skip breakfast, I'm not promoting this for everybody,
Yeah.
because I think for some people fasting is really dangerous, especially for people who have eating disorder, history of eating disorder, disordered eating, whatever. But it can help. And you know what, improving the quality of your diet. So like, I know a lot of women in their 40s who, and this is a generalization, but I'm in my 40s, so I'm going to say it, who drink a ton of wine, who eat a ton of takeout, and especially like with the pandemic, right? Because we've been under a lot of stress. Just sort of not, I don't like the word clean food or whatever, but cleaning up your diet in the way of like improving the quality, decreasing the amount of sugar or added sugars that you consume, decreasing by as much as possible the amount of alcohol that you consume, eating more whole grains and tons of fruits and vegetables, lean proteins, more plants. That all has been really key in my personal situation, and it's what I recommend to everybody anyways.
So it's funny that you bring up eating more plants, because that was another question that we got here from a Colette in the club. And she says, what advice do you give folks who dislike veggies but want to try and eat more? I'm 48 years old and I'm a sugar addict who is trying to clean up her diet. I quit smoking. I'm replacing that addiction, though, with sugar. I know vegetables need to be a central part of my diet, but my mind thinks I need to only eat the green ones or don't bother. So I'm not enjoying the veggies. Are there any veggies that are good veggies? And
who said that should only eat green ones or that don't bother? That is the most obtuse thing I've ever heard. Holy crap. Whoever said that to you, don't listen to them ever again. That is wrong. All vegetables are fine, even white potatoes. Yes, people, I said it, I'm a huge fan of the potato. Yeah, they all count. Corn, peas, potatoes, they count, even though they're starchy. Winter squash, they're more of starches, but they are beneficial still. Carrots, green beans, like what I would say is, like, even if you only like, for example, carrots and broccoli, just eat carrots and broccoli. Nothing bad is going to happen to you if those are the only vegetables you like and you want to consume. But I would recommend trying vegetables made in different ways. I'm not sure why you don't like vegetables. Some people hate vegetables because they haven't had them prepared properly. They've grown up in a house where like their parent like killed the Brussels sprouts, like they were mushy or whatnot. And so try them made in different ways. I personally adore any vegetable that has been tossed in olive oil and salt and put on the grill. Broccoli, asparagus, like delicious, and beets. So all vegetables are fine, but don't be scared away from them. And yeah, what you said about like replacing one addiction with the other, totally common, absolutely. But if you eat enough protein and you eat often enough and eat a ton of fiber, hopefully, you can move forward from that sugar sort of addiction. It's not a true addiction, but I know that it can feel that way. But good job on quitting smoking.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing we talk about. Celebrate every small victory, like you just won the Stanley Cup or the Super Bowl or something. Because that's just it. So on that note, I mean, for me, I remember before my diabetes diagnosis, I mean, for me, it just became kind of a pattern where it's like, you know what, ice cream, that's got to happen all the time. And you find those things. Is there any suggestions you have for someone who might feel like they are addicted to a sugar or something like that? Like, should they try and wean themselves off? I know in the book, especially, you talk about avoiding terms like cheat days and things like that, because you don't want to punish yourself. But at the same time, is there a way to maybe look at an ice cream cone or a pan of brownies or whatever, like a brownie, as a reward or a treat for yourself?
You know what? I like to make some allowance in my day, pretty much every day, for something sweet, because I love it. So I like Midday Squares. They're a Canadian company that it's like, and I'm not for healthifying anything. Like I'm not into functional food where like they take chocolate and they shove a bunch of antioxidants in it and fiber and call it like functional. But Midday Squares, I am obsessed with them. They taste amazing. You can buy them online. They're not cheap. This is the thing, but you only need one. I'm in a pack of two. They have this thick chocolate coating, and I find they're amazing. I also, just eat like a small sweet a day, and but I don't ever really advocate for cutting them out altogether, because it's unsustainable. And then when you eventually eat them, because you will, you're going to feel guilty. And what good is that? And generally you'll overeat them too. So just sort of like think about it. Think about like that nothing is off the table and nothing is bad.
And that's where I kind of wanted to shift from the questions here over to more the psychology of this, because you and I, without even knowing each other until now, kind of, from what I believe, share a lot of the same ideas when it comes to food or exercise or any of these things that we try and do to improve or enhance our own experiences with them. Is that all too often we're quick to punish ourselves, and we're quick to say, like, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that. There goes, I just don't have any willpower. I don't have any strength. Which can transpose over to running as well, right? It's like, oh, I should go out, but I can't, I can get it another time and stuff like that. And while you can do that, would you agree or disagree with the statement that consistency is more of a friend in any challenge when it comes to, either just trying to change things up with your eating or exercise and things like that? Because to me, I find I started a run club just so I could go out and run and be more accountable to myself. Okay. So do you find that if we just stay consistent, maybe we can stop kicking our own ass about it as much?
Yeah, I think consistency is a huge part of it. I think a lot of people, especially with eating, will be like on or off a diet. And it's like, you don't have to be on a diet. You just have to consistently make choices that work for you. And but also understand that our bodies don't really work day to day. They work week to week, month to month. So let's say like one day you had a big slice of birthday cake, some lasagna and some chips, like your body's not gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna gain 5 pounds now. It's like, that's not the way your body works, right? And so I think the most important thing is, if you most of the time eat in a way that's healthful, then some of the times when you don't, it's fine. Like, get over it. There's nothing to be guilty about. It's so normal to eat that way. We all do it, and nothing bad's going to happen to you.
You can always turn around. You can always, if you veer off track, that's not that big a deal. It's if you completely abandon the course, then you should start to worry, right? But But if
Yeah.
we're all smart enough to know when we're doing something that's excessive, I think, and when we're not. And I
Yeah.
think it's just owning that to ourselves. And one of the worst things I found until it basically became a matter of whether or not I'd have feet anymore, was forgiving myself for not staying on track, because again, you go through this great list, and I'm not you're not paying me to plug the book or anything. You're just doing this here, but I love reading this thing
Buy
because
my book.
yeah, you
It's
please.
all graded. Buy my book.
but in all seriousness, you list down all the things that a lot of people will do to beat themselves up
Yeah.
over having too much pie one night or too much whatever. And as long as you
It's
realize
just
that
so negative.
it doesn't start or finish with one night, just like the running doesn't start or finish with one run. How many people come out and run and they get told, well, first run, we're running for a half an hour straight. And I'm like, fuck that. We are not doing that.
Yeah.
You're gonna walk first, see if your legs feel good, all this other stuff, and then we'll go from there. So I really thank you for taking the time. I hope we can do this again. I know that any minute now the 11-year-old's coming out to roll her eyes at you, but I just wanted to see if you had anything you'd like to say to our group or anybody watching this, just about what they can do to avoid the traps of negativity, because you do such a great job listing it out here. But I'm wondering if you have maybe a mantra or something you've kind of been living by to even help yourself in your own journeys and your own path, and maybe your kids even ask you these questions. I don't know, but you got to think that everybody knows Abby, the dietitian and the nutritionist. Like, okay, Abby, give me the key to happiness and success here.
I think it comes down to understanding that what you're doing is normal, and we all, the most of the behaviors that we tend to beat ourselves up about are completely normal. And there's no such thing as perfection in nutrition at all, ever. What's a perfect diet? I want you to eat in a way that supports you living your best life. So that not only means that you're healthy, but also that you're happy and that you're satisfied and you're enjoying your life, because so many people don't do that because their diet won't allow them to. Don't fall into that trap. And, we all have days where we overindulge. Big deal. Like, get over it, move past it. If your only tool in your coping toolbox is to overeat, then you need to get help for that. Mm-hmm. But if you have other coping mechanisms, then, emotional eating every once in a while or overeating, it's normal. So, that's what I have to say, because I think people beat themselves up because they think that, this stuff is horrible, but it's really just human nature.
And that's just it. I think that it's the big screen TV syndrome, where you go to the electronics store and you drop like $2,000 on a brand new TV. Like, oh well, I'll get the $700 add on this or whatever because I've already dropped this much. And I think that people who overeat can fall into that trap too, right? So maybe acknowledging that, respecting yourself enough to know, okay, you know what, this wasn't great. Being honest with yourself, say this wasn't the best, but don't
and move on.
Yeah, don't sit there in your own shit forever. Just move on to your next thing.
You don't deserve that. What did you do to deserve that? What, you ate too much ice cream? Big fucking deal. Get over it. Move on.
I love it. Abby Langer, follow her at Abby Langer Nutrition. This is the book right here. There's a big fancy slide showing it better now. It's a great read, and I told you this in Facebook. Like, I don't even read. Like, I'm not a good reader, but this book is fantastic. So thank you for taking the time. I hope we can do this again. We'll touch on some more stuff down the road. Congratulations on everything you're doing. Keep up the good work and keep fighting the good fight.
Thank you. It's good to be here.